The navy dress caught the light differently each time Juliana Santos wore it. Or maybe that was just what Garrett Jackson told himself as he watched her navigate yet another charity gala in the same outfit she had worn to 3 previous events. The dress itself was unremarkable. A simple A-line cut with 3/4 sleeves, hemline just below the knee, the kind of thing that could have come from any department store clearance rack or thrift shop. What made it remarkable was that while every other person in attendance treated these galas like fashion shows, Juliana seemed entirely unconcerned with keeping up appearances. Garrett leaned against the bar, nursing a whiskey he did not really want, and observed her from across the room. She was laughing at something the event coordinator had said, her hand gesturing animatedly as she spoke. Even from this distance, he could see the genuine warmth in her expression, the way her whole face lit up when she smiled. It was refreshing in a world where most people wore masks as carefully constructed as their designer outfits. "You are staring again," his sister Melissa said, appearing at his elbow with a glass of champagne. She followed his gaze and raised an eyebrow. "The event planner. Really, Garrett?" "She is not just an event planner," he replied, taking a sip of his drink. "She runs her own company, Santos Events. They have been coordinating most of the major charity functions in the city for the past 2 years. And you know this because you have been doing research, or because you have been obsessing." Garrett shot his sister a look. "I make it my business to know who I am working with. Her company has raised over $15 million for various causes this year alone. That is impressive. MMHMM. And the fact that she is beautiful has nothing to do with your sudden interest in event planning statistics." He did not dignify that with a response. Yes, Juliana was attractive, but that was not what drew his attention. Garrett Jackson had built his pharmaceutical empire from the ground up, turning a single research facility into a multi-billion-dollar company that had revolutionized treatment for autoimmune diseases. In his world, he encountered beautiful people every day. Models, actresses, socialites, all of them polished and perfect and utterly predictable. Juliana Santos was something else entirely. "Introduce me," he said suddenly. Melissa nearly choked on her champagne. "Excuse me, you are on the board for the Children's Hospital Foundation. You must have worked with her directly. Introduce me." His sister studied him with the kind of penetrating gaze that only siblings could manage. "Garrett, when was the last time you asked me to introduce you to anyone? Is that a no? That is a what are you up to question." "I am not up to anything. I want to meet the woman who has been single-handedly organizing events that have raised millions for causes I care about." "Is that so strange?" Melissa's expression softened slightly. "You really are interested in the work, are you not?" "Among other things," he admitted. She shook her head but was already moving toward Juliana, who had finished her conversation and was checking something on her tablet. Garrett followed, suddenly aware that his heart was beating faster than it had in years. Ridiculous. He was 34 years old, the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and he was nervous about meeting an event planner. "Juliana," Melissa called out warmly, "everything looks absolutely perfect tonight. You have outdone yourself." Juliana's face broke into a genuine smile. "Melissa, thank you. Though I have to give credit to my team. Rosa handled all the catering coordination, and Marcus worked magic with the lighting. You are too modest. I know for a fact you personally secured the venue when the original location fell through last month." Melissa turned to Garrett. "Juliana, I would like you to meet my brother Garrett Jackson. Garrett, this is Juliana Santos, the genius behind tonight's event." Juliana extended her hand, and Garrett took it, noting the firm grip and the calluses on her palm. These were hands that did real work, not just signed checks and shook hands at meetings. "Mr. Jackson, it is an honor. Jackson Pharmaceuticals has been one of our most generous sponsors this year. Please call me Garrett, and the honor is mine. What you have accomplished with these events is remarkable." A slight blush colored her cheeks, and he found himself fascinated by the way it made her eyes seem even brighter. "I appreciate that, but really, it is about the causes. The work you do, developing medications that actually help people instead of just treating symptoms. That is what is remarkable." Most people, when they met Garrett, either wanted something from him or wanted to impress him with how much they knew about his company. Juliana seemed genuinely interested in the work itself, not the prestige or money behind it. "Have you been personally affected by autoimmune disease?" he asked, then immediately worried he had overstepped. "I apologize, that is too personal a question." "No, it is all right. My mother has lupus. She was diagnosed 15 years ago, before the newer treatments became available. Your company's research has given her quality of life she never thought she would have again." Juliana's voice carried a weight of genuine emotion. "So when I say the work is remarkable, I mean it." The moment hung between them, charged with something Garrett could not quite name. Melissa, with the impeccable timing of an interfering sibling, excused herself to greet another board member. "Would you like to get some air?" Garrett found himself asking. "The balcony overlooks the city, and I think we could both use a break from the crowd." Juliana hesitated, glancing at her tablet. "I should probably make sure everything is running smoothly." "From what I have seen, everything is running perfectly. 10 minutes. She smiled, and he realized he would have paid a considerable sum to see that smile directed at him more often. 10 minutes. They made their way through the crowd to the venue's balcony, a spacious area with a wrought iron railing that overlooked the glittering cityscape. The spring air was cool but not cold, carrying the scent of the flowering trees that lined the streets below. "I have a confession to make," Garrett said, leaning against the railing. "This is the 4th event I have attended in the past 2 months. I usually send my assistant to these things. And yet you have been showing up in person lately." Juliana tilted her head, curious but not coy. There was no artifice in her expression, just genuine interest. "The first one was obligation. My sister guilted me into attending, but I noticed something that night that intrigued me." "What was that? You, in that exact same dress?" Juliana's expression shifted, and for a moment Garrett worried he had embarrassed her. But then she laughed, a real laugh that seemed to surprise even her. "I was wondering if anyone would notice, or rather, if anyone would say anything about it." "Does it bother you that I noticed?" "Honestly, no." She smoothed her hands over the skirt of the dress. "I bought this at a thrift store 3 years ago for $20. It fits well, it is comfortable, and it is appropriate for these events. I could spend hundreds of dollars on a new designer dress for every gala, or I could put that money towards something that actually matters. Like your business, like the causes we are supporting. Do you know what I could do with the price of one designer gown? I could feed 20 families for a week. I could buy school supplies for an entire classroom. I could contribute to someone's medical treatment." She met his eyes squarely. "I am not here to impress anyone with my wardrobe. I am here to do a job and to help people." Garrett felt something shift in his chest, a recognition of kindred spirit he had not expected to find. "That is refreshing." "Is it? Because most of the people in there probably think I am either broke or clueless about fashion." "Does that bother you?" Juliana considered the question seriously. "Sometimes. I would be lying if I said I did not care at all what people think, but I care more about staying true to my values. My abuela, she raised me and my sister after our parents died. She taught us that real wealth is not in what you own, but in what you can give." Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She was. She passed away 2 years ago, right before I started Santos events. Juliana's voice softened with grief and love. Every event I do, every dollar we raise, it is partly for her. She always said that if you have more than you need, build a longer table, not a higher fence. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city lights twinkle below. Garrett found himself more drawn to this woman than he had been to anyone in years. Her honesty was like fresh air in a world that often felt suffocating with pretense and manipulation. "Can I take you to dinner?" The words were out before he could second-guess them. Not as a networking opportunity or a business discussion, just dinner. Two people getting to know each other. Juliana turned to face him fully, and he could see her weighing his sincerity. "Why?" "Because I have not had a genuine conversation with someone in months, maybe years. Because you care about your work for the right reasons. Because you wear a $20 dress to events full of people in designer clothes and you do not apologize for it." He paused. "Because I would very much like to know more about you." A slow smile spread across her face. "Okay, but somewhere normal, please. Not some five-star restaurant where the portions are tiny and everyone is posturing." "I know exactly the place," he said, and meant it. There was a family-owned Italian restaurant in his old neighborhood, the kind of place where the owner still cooked and the waiters knew regular customers by name. He had not been there in years, but suddenly it seemed like the perfect choice. They exchanged numbers before returning to the party, and Garrett found himself checking his phone compulsively for the next 2 days until their dinner date arrived. Melissa teased him mercilessly about his sudden preoccupation, but he did not care. When Friday evening came, he skipped his usual driver and took his own car, a BMW he rarely drove himself, to pick up Juliana from her office. Santos Events was located in a converted warehouse in a neighborhood that was transitioning from industrial to trendy. The space was open and bright, with exposed brick walls covered in photographs from various events. Juliana emerged from a back office wearing jeans and a simple green sweater, her hair down instead of in the professional bun she had worn at the gala. "This is more like it," she said, grinning as she locked the door behind her. "I spend enough time in that dress. It is nice to wear something I did not find in a thrift store for once." "Though there is nothing wrong with thrift stores," Garrett said as he opened the car door for her. "Nothing at all. Some of my favorite clothes came from thrift stores. It is like a treasure hunt, and everything has a story." The restaurant was exactly as Garrett remembered it. Small, warm, smelling of garlic and tomatoes and fresh bread. Mrs. Alberti, who had to be pushing 80 by now, recognized him immediately and swept him into a hug that nearly knocked the wind out of him. "Garrett Jackson. I have not seen you in 5 years. Your mother, God rest her soul, she would be so upset that you stopped coming to see us." "I know, Mrs. Alberti, I am sorry. Work has been consuming." "Work, work, always work. What good is all that money if you do not take time to eat good food and spend time with beautiful women?" She turned her sharp gaze to Juliana, and her expression softened. "And who is this, Juliana Santos? She runs her own business too, but she makes time for dinner, I hope." "Come, come. I have the perfect table for you." Mrs. Alberti led them to a corner booth with a red checked tablecloth and a candle flickering in a glass holder. She did not give them menus, just patted Garrett's shoulder and said, "I will bring you the good stuff." Juliana was laughing as she settled into her seat. "I am guessing you are a regular here." "I was, a long time ago. When I first started the company, I lived 3 blocks from here in an apartment that was barely bigger than a closet. I ate here at least 3 times a week because I did not have time to cook, and Mrs. Alberti's food reminded me of home." Where is home? Small town in Ohio, population of about 3,000. My father was a pharmacist, ran the only drugstore in town. He was the one who inspired me to go into pharmaceutical research. Garrett found himself telling her stories he had not shared in years. About growing up in a town where everyone knew everyone. About watching his father compound medications by hand and take the time to explain to every patient exactly what they were taking and why. He sounds like he was a good man, Juliana said softly. He was. He died when I was in graduate school. Heart attack, completely unexpected. He was only 53. I am sorry. Losing a parent too young, it changes you. It does. How old were you when you lost your parents? 8. Car accident. One day they were there and the next they were gone. My abuela, she stepped in without hesitation. She was 70 years old and suddenly she had 2 little girls to raise all over again. Juliana's eyes shone with unshed tears. She never once made us feel like we were a burden. She said we were her greatest blessing. Mrs. Alberti arrived with plates of food before Garrett could respond. Homemade pasta with meat sauce, garlic bread still steaming from the oven, a salad of tomatoes and fresh mozzarella. The next hour passed in a blur of good food and better conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, discovering shared loves of old movies and hiking trails, debating the merits of various pizza toppings and whether audiobooks counted as real reading. They absolutely count, Juliana insisted, spearing a piece of tomato with her fork. The story is being consumed, just in a different format. But you are missing the physical experience of holding a book, turning the pages. That is like saying you cannot appreciate music unless you are at a live concert. Different experiences can both be valid. Garrett found himself grinning. You are very passionate about this. I drive a lot for work. Audiobooks keep me sane during traffic. I will defend them to my last breath. Noted, no insulting audiobooks in your presence. Smart man, as Mrs. Alberti cleared their plates and brought out tiramisu that she insisted they share. Garrett realized he had not thought about work once in the past 2 hours. That was unprecedented. Even on vacation, even during previous relationships, part of his mind had always been tracking problems and solutions, running through data and projections. With Juliana, he was entirely present in the moment. "Can I ask you something?" Juliana said, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "Why pharmaceuticals? I mean, I know your father was a pharmacist, but pharmaceutical research is different. It is years of work, often with no guarantee of success. Because when my father died, I realized how fragile everything is. How much of our quality of life depends on having access to effective medication. I watched him help people every day with what was available, but I also watched him struggle with the limitations of existing treatments." Garrett set down his own spoon. "I wanted to expand what was possible. To create treatments that did not just mask symptoms, but actually addressed root causes. The autoimmune research. Yes. Traditional medicine often treated autoimmune diseases by suppressing the entire immune system, which left patients vulnerable to infections and other complications. We have been working on targeted therapies that can modulate specific immune responses without compromising the whole system." Juliana's eyes were bright with interest. "My mother is on one of your newer medications. The difference has been incredible. She went from barely being able to get out of bed some days to traveling and living her life again. That is exactly why I do this. Every patient story like your mother's makes the long hours and failures worth it. How do you handle the failures? The drugs that do not work, the trials that fail?" It was a perceptive question, one that cut to the heart of his work. "With difficulty, honestly. Every failed trial represents hope that did not materialize for patients who need help, but you have to find a way to learn from it and move forward. The alternative is to give up, and that is not an option. That must be lonely sometimes, carrying that weight. Garrett met her eyes across the table, struck by how clearly she seemed to see him. It can be, but it is the job I chose. The job you chose, or the mission you took on. Maybe both. They lingered over coffee until Mrs. Alberti started pointedly cleaning tables around them, and even then, Garrett was reluctant to let the evening end. He drove Juliana back to her office where her own car was parked, and they sat in his car talking for another 30 minutes before she finally glanced at the time and laughed. "It is nearly midnight. I have an event tomorrow, and I need at least a few hours of sleep. When can I see you again?" The question came out more urgent than he intended, but Juliana did not seem put off. "I am free Sunday afternoon. There is a hiking trail I have been wanting to try, if you are interested in something other than fancy dinners." "I would love that. Send me the details." "I will." She leaned over and kissed his cheek, a brief brush of lips that left his skin tingling. Then she was out of the car and walking to her own vehicle, turning once to wave before she drove away. Garrett sat there for several minutes, trying to process what he was feeling. It had been years since anyone had affected him like this, and even then, it had not felt quite this intense. Sunday arrived with perfect hiking weather. Sunny but cool, with a breeze that rustled through the new leaves on the trees. Juliana picked the trail, a moderate 6-mile loop that wound through forests and along a ridge with views of the valley below. She showed up in worn hiking boots and athletic clothes, her hair in a ponytail, carrying a backpack that turned out to be filled with homemade sandwiches and fruit. "I may have gotten a little carried away with the food prep," she admitted as they started up the trail, "but I hate being hungry on hikes." "I came prepared too," Garrett said, patting his own backpack. "Water, first aid kit, emergency blanket, flashlight. Boy Scout, Eagle Scout actually. My mother insisted. She said it would teach me responsibility and leadership. Did it? Probably. Or maybe I was just predisposed to being responsible and leading things. Hard to say." They fell into an easy rhythm, the trail steep enough to require attention but not so difficult that conversation was impossible. Juliana pointed out wildflowers and birds, clearly knowledgeable about the local ecology. Garrett found himself watching her as much as the scenery, noting the way she moved with confidence and grace, never hesitating even on the rockier sections. "You have done this a lot," he observed. "Hiking." "Yeah, it is my main way of decompressing. I can spend a week coordinating events, dealing with vendors and venues and last-minute crises, and then I get out here and remember that most of that stress is self-created. The mountains do not care about seating charts or catering menus, but you care about your work. I do. But it is important to have perspective. My abuela, she used to say that God gave us legs to walk and eyes to see, and it was disrespectful not to use them." Juliana grinned. She had a saying for everything. She sounds like she was an amazing woman. She really was. Fierce and loving in equal measure. She came to this country with nothing, worked as a housekeeper for 40 years and raised 4 kids plus 2 grandkids. And she never complained, never acted like life owed her anything. She just got up every day and did what needed to be done. "Is that where you learned to be so pragmatic?" Juliana glanced at him, curious. "You think I am pragmatic? I think you are one of the most grounded, sensible people I have ever met. The dress is just one example. You make choices based on your values, not on what other people expect." "That is a nice way of saying I am weird and do not care about fashion." "That is not at all what I mean. I mean that you have integrity. You know who you are and what matters to you, and you do not compromise on that." Garrett stopped walking, suddenly needing her to understand. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Especially in my world where everyone is constantly performing, constantly trying to present the right image. Juliana stopped too, turning to face him fully. Your world is not my world, though. I can afford to be authentic because I am not playing at that level. Is that really what you think? That authenticity is a luxury you can only afford if you are not successful enough. I think the stakes are different when you are a billionaire CEO versus a small business owner. You have shareholders and boards and media scrutiny. I have my team and my clients and my conscience. Garrett stepped closer, drawn by something he could not quite name. I think you are selling yourself short. You have built something real, something that matters. And you have done it without sacrificing who you are. That is not a small thing. They stood there on the trail, the forest quiet around them except for birdsong and the rustle of wind through leaves. Juliana's expression was unreadable, and Garrett worried he had pushed too hard, revealed too much of his growing feelings. Then she smiled, soft and genuine. Thank you. That means a lot, especially coming from someone like you. Someone like me. Someone who has actually changed the world. Do not get me wrong, I am proud of what I have built. But you have literally saved lives with your work. I coordinate parties. Parties that raise millions of dollars for causes that save and improve lives. That is not nothing, Juliana. That is everything. She reached out and took his hand, a gesture that felt monumental in its simplicity. You really believe that, do not you? I do. I meant what I said the other night. What you have accomplished is remarkable. They continued hiking hand in hand, and Garrett felt like he was 17 again, experiencing the giddy rush of a first crush. Except, this was not a crush. This was something deeper, something that felt like it had roots already, despite only knowing her for a week. When they reached the summit, they sat on a flat rock and shared the lunch Juliana had packed. The view stretched for miles, green valleys dotted with small towns, mountains rising in the distance against a blue sky. I forget sometimes, Garrett said quietly, that this exists outside the city. I get so caught up in meetings and lab results and quarterly reports that I forget there is a whole world out here. That is why I make myself come out here regularly. It is too easy to get lost in the work, especially when the work matters. But you cannot pour from an empty cup. That is wise. That is self-preservation disguised as wisdom. Juliana unwrapped a sandwich and handed it to him. Turkey and Swiss. I hope that is okay. It is perfect. They ate in comfortable silence, and Garrett marveled at how easy this felt. He had been in relationships before, some lasting years, but they had always felt like work. He had always been conscious of playing a role, being the successful CEO, the accomplished businessman, the eligible bachelor. With Juliana, he could just be Garrett. She did not seem impressed by his money or intimidated by his success. She saw him, not his accomplishments. Can I ask you something personal? Juliana said as she packed up the remains of their lunch. Of course. Have you always been this driven? Or is it something that happened after your father died? Garrett considered the question, wanting to give her an honest answer. I think I was always ambitious, but my father's death gave that ambition direction and urgency. Before, I wanted to be successful in some vague, undefined way. After I had a specific mission, I knew exactly what I wanted to do and why. Do you ever resent it, having your life shaped by loss? Sometimes, but mostly I feel grateful that I found something meaningful to dedicate myself to. A lot of people search their whole lives for purpose and never find it. Juliana nodded thoughtfully. I feel the same way about Santos events. I started it partly as a tribute to my abuela, but it has become so much more. Every event, every dollar raised, it feels like I am contributing something real. You are. They hiked back down as the afternoon sun slanted through the trees, and by the time they reached the parking lot, Garrett's legs ached in a way that felt good, earned. Juliana looked energized rather than tired, her face flushed from exertion and sun. "That was exactly what I needed," she said, stretching her arms over her head. "Thank you for coming with me. Thank you for inviting me. I have not done anything like this in years. Then we should do it again. Maybe next weekend. I would like that. Though I should warn you, I have a gala on Saturday night, one of yours, actually." Juliana's eyes lit up. "The Arts Foundation fundraiser, that is going to be beautiful. We have a string quartet and this incredible light installation. I have been planning it for months. Then I will definitely be there. Will you save a dance for me?" She blushed, which Garrett found absurdly charming. "I do not usually dance at events. I am too busy making sure everything runs smoothly. Make an exception, please." "Okay, one dance." "I will take it." The week passed in a blur of text messages and phone calls. Garrett found himself looking for excuses to message Juliana, sharing random observations about his day, asking her opinion on everything from restaurant recommendations to whether he should attend a conference in Boston. She responded with the same warmth and humor she showed in person, and he found himself smiling at his phone like a teenager. Melissa noticed, of course. She cornered him in his office on Thursday afternoon, shutting the door behind her with exaggerated care. "Okay, spill." "What is going on with you?" "I am working, same as always. You are humming." "I heard you humming while you were reading lab reports. You never hum." Garrett tried to suppress a smile and failed. "Is humming a crime? It is suspicious. This is about that event planner, is it not? Juliana." "Her name is Juliana, and yes, I have been seeing her. Seeing her as in dating her. Actual dating. Is that so shocking?" Melissa sat down in one of his office chairs, her expression a mix of delight and concern. "Garrett, you have not seriously dated anyone in 3 years, not since Rebecca. Rebecca and I were not right for each other, we both knew it. You were engaged, and then we were not. It was mutual and amicable. And you have been married to your work ever since." Melissa leaned forward. "I am happy for you, truly, but I am also worried. You have a tendency to throw yourself completely into things. Make sure you are not building this up into something it is not." "I am not building anything. I am just getting to know someone I really like." "Someone you really like, or someone you are already falling for?" Garrett met his sister's eyes and knew he could not lie to her. "Maybe both. Just be careful, okay? I know you. When you care about something, you care with your whole heart. That is beautiful, but it also means you can get hurt. I am aware of the risks. Are you? Because from where I am sitting, you look like a man who is already in deep." She was not wrong. Garrett had been trying not to examine his feelings too closely, worried about what he might find. But the truth was that Juliana had gotten under his skin in a way no one else ever had. He thought about her constantly, found himself planning his schedule around opportunities to see her, imagined a future that included her in every aspect of his life. Saturday night arrived, and Garrett spent more time than usual getting ready for the gala. He caught himself checking his appearance in the mirror 3 times, making sure his tuxedo was perfect, his hair properly styled. Ridiculous. He was a grown man, not a boy going to prom. The venue was a historic mansion that had been converted into an event space, all soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers. True to Juliana's description, the light installation was stunning. Projections of famous artworks flowing across the walls in time with the music, colors shifting and blending in mesmerizing patterns. He found her near the entrance, consulting with a member of her team about the placement of the dessert table. She wore the navy dress, of course, but she had added a silver necklace that caught the light. When she saw him, her face lit up in a way that made his chest tight. "You made it," she said, excusing herself from the conversation and walking over to meet him. "I said I would be here, and I was promised a dance. The night is young. Give me an hour to make sure everything is running smoothly, and then I am all yours. I will hold you to that." Garrett made the rounds, talking to other donors and board members, but his attention kept drifting to Juliana. She moved through the crowd with practiced ease, solving problems before they became visible, making sure every guest felt welcomed and valued. He watched her comfort an elderly woman who seemed overwhelmed by the crowd, finding her a quiet corner and bringing her a glass of water. He saw her intercept a potential issue with the catering staff, handling it with quick efficiency and a warm smile. This was Juliana in her element, and she was magnificent. When the string quartet started playing a waltz, Garrett made his way to where she stood near the light controls, watching the projections shift from Monet to Van Gogh. "One dance," he said, offering his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. "One dance." He led her to the dance floor, vaguely aware of heads turning to watch them. Let them stare. Let them see the CEO of Jackson Pharmaceuticals dancing with the event planner in her thrift store dress. He did not care about any of it. Juliana fit perfectly in his arms, following his lead with natural grace. She smelled like jasmine and something citrusy, and having her this close made it hard to think about anything else. "You are a good dancer," she said, sounding surprised. "My mother insisted on lessons." She said a gentleman should know how to properly escort a lady on the dance floor. "Your mother sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was. I wish you could have met her. She would have liked you." "What makes you say that?" "Because she valued authenticity above all else. She could spot a phony from a mile away, and she did not suffer fools. You would have impressed her." Juliana smiled up at him, and Garrett felt something shift and settle in his chest, like a puzzle piece finding its proper place. "I wish I could have met her too." They danced through 2 more songs before Juliana reluctantly excused herself to handle something with the silent auction. Garrett let her go, but his eyes followed her across the room. He was so absorbed in watching her that he did not notice his sister approaching until she spoke. "You have got it bad. Excuse me. I have never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her, not even Rebecca." Garrett could not argue with that. "She is special. She also does not seem particularly impressed by your money or status. Is that part of the appeal?" "It is part of what makes her genuine, but it is more than that. She is passionate about her work for the right reasons. She cares about making a real difference, and she is honest in a way that is almost startling." Melissa studied him for a long moment. "You are in love with her." "I have known her for less than 2 weeks. That did not answer my question." Garrett watched Juliana laugh at something a volunteer had said, saw the way she gave that person her complete attention, made them feel valued and heard. "Maybe I am. Or maybe I am well on my way to being in love with her." "Have you told her that I am falling in love with her?" "No, that would be insane. We have barely started dating." "Garrett, you have never been good at half measures. If you feel this strongly, she should know before things get more complicated. Or I could terrify her and drive her away by coming on too strong." Melissa laughed. "Fair point. But do not wait too long. A woman like that, genuine and kind and successful, she will not stay unattached forever." The thought of Juliana with someone else sent a spike of something ugly and possessive through Garrett's chest. He knew it was irrational, knew they had not made any commitment to exclusivity, but the feeling was there nonetheless. When the gala finally wound down and the last guests departed, Garrett helped Juliana and her team break down the decorations and pack up equipment. He saw her trying to hide her surprise that a billionaire CEO would do manual labor, but he had grown up working in his father's pharmacy, stocking shelves and cleaning floors. He had never forgotten where he came from. "You do not have to do this," Juliana said as he carefully wrapped wine glasses in tissue paper. "I know I want to help." "Why?" "Because you have been on your feet for 12 hours and this way we finish faster and you can get home sooner." She smiled, soft and tired and genuine. "Thank you." It was nearly 2 in the morning by the time everything was loaded into the vans and Juliana's team headed out. She stood in the parking lot, swaying slightly with exhaustion. "Let me drive you home," Garrett said. "You are too tired to be behind the wheel." "I am fine." "Juliana, you are literally falling asleep standing up. Please, we can pick up your car tomorrow." She did not have the energy to argue, which told him exactly how exhausted she was. She gave him her address and fell asleep in the passenger seat before they were even out of the parking lot. Garrett drove carefully, hyper-aware of his precious cargo, and felt his heart clench at how vulnerable she looked in sleep. Her apartment was in a modest complex in a safe but unassuming neighborhood. He gently woke her when they arrived, and she blinked at him in confusion before remembering where she was. "Sorry, I did not mean to pass out on you." "You have nothing to apologize for. You worked incredibly hard tonight." The event was a success, though. "Did you see the final count on the silent auction? We raised almost $2 million. That is amazing. You should be proud." She smiled sleepily. "I am, but right now I am mostly tired." "Then let me walk you to your door." Her apartment was on the second floor, a cozy space filled with plants and photographs in bright colors. Garrett caught glimpses of a life well lived. Bookshelves packed with worn paperbacks, a yoga mat rolled up in the corner, artwork that looked handmade and meaningful. "Thank you for driving me home," Juliana said, leaning against her doorframe, "and for helping with cleanup, and for the dance. Thank you for saving me a dance even though you were exhausted. It was the highlight of my night." Garrett stepped closer, drawn by the warmth in her eyes. "Can I kiss you?" "I was hoping you would ask." He cupped her face gently, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and then kissed her. It was soft and sweet and perfect, and when they broke apart, Juliana was smiling. "Good night, Garrett." "Good night, Juliana." He waited until she was safely inside before heading back to his car, feeling lighter than he had in years. His phone buzzed with a text as he drove home. "Juliana, thank you again for tonight, for everything. Garrett, the pleasure was entirely mine. Sleep well, Juliana. You too. See you tomorrow for car retrieval and maybe breakfast. Garrett, definitely breakfast. I will bring coffee." He fell asleep that night thinking about her smile, the way she had felt in his arms on the dance floor, the promise of breakfast tomorrow. Melissa was right. He had it bad. And he did not care at all. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. They saw each other whenever their schedules allowed, which was not as often as Garrett would have liked. Juliana had events most weekends, and he had board meetings and lab visits and investor presentations. But they made time, stealing hours here and there, building something that felt increasingly solid and real. Garrett introduced her to his favorite running trail along the river. Juliana took him to a pottery class where they made laughably lopsided bowls and got clay everywhere. They cooked dinner together in his much too fancy kitchen, and she teased him about having professional-grade appliances he clearly never used. They talked about everything: their families, their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. "If you could do anything," Garrett asked her one evening as they lay on a blanket in his backyard watching the stars, "money and logistics no object, what would you do?" Juliana was quiet for a long moment. "I would start a foundation. One that specifically helps small nonprofits with event planning and fundraising. So many amazing causes struggle because they do not have the resources or expertise to put on successful fundraisers. I would love to provide those services for free or at cost, help them maximize their impact. That is beautiful. What about you? What is your impossible dream? Not impossible. I am working on it right now, actually. We are in the final stages of testing a new medication for multiple sclerosis. If it works the way we hope it will, it could slow or even stop disease progression. That would change everything for millions of people. When will you know if it works? The trial finishes in 6 months. Then we have to analyze the data, go through FDA approval, arrange manufacturing and distribution. If everything goes perfectly, it could be on the market in 2 years. And if it does not go perfectly, then we learn from what went wrong and we try again. Failure is part of the process. Juliana rolled onto her side to look at him. Does it scare you, knowing that so much depends on your work, every single day? But I would rather try and fail than never try at all. She kissed him then, deep and slow, and Garrett lost himself in the feeling of her hands in his hair, her body pressed against his. They had been taking things slowly, both aware of the intensity building between them, both wanting to be sure this was real and lasting. But that night, with stars overhead and her warmth surrounding him, Garrett knew with absolute certainty that this was real. This was everything he had been looking for without knowing he was searching. "Juliana," he murmured against her lips, "I am falling in love with you." She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes, her expression serious. "I am falling in love with you too. It terrifies me a little." "Why?" "Because we are from such different worlds. Your life is board meetings and charity galas and decisions that affect millions of people. Mine is vendor negotiations and seating charts and making sure the ice sculpture does not melt before the speeches. Our work is different. But our values are not. We both care about making a difference. We both believe in using what we have to help others. That matters more than the differences in our bank accounts." "Does it? Garrett, you are a billionaire." "I am a small business owner who wears the same dress to every event because it does not make sense to spend money on clothes when that money could go somewhere more useful. And that is one of the things I love about you. Your integrity, your values, your refusal to compromise who you are for anyone." Juliana's eyes filled with tears. "I am scared. I am scared of falling completely in love with you and then discovering that our different worlds matter more than I want them to." Garrett pulled her close, holding her against his chest. "I cannot promise you that this will be easy, but I can promise you that I am all in. I want this, want you, want us. Whatever challenges come, we will face them together." "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I am all in too." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped up in each other under the stars, and Garrett felt a peace settle over him that he had never experienced before. This was right. This was real. This was everything. The next morning, Garrett woke up with Juliana in his arms and felt like the luckiest man alive. She was still asleep, her hair spread across his pillow, her face peaceful and unguarded. He wanted to wake up like this every morning for the rest of his life. The thought should have terrified him. They had only been dating for 2 months, but it felt natural, inevitable, like he had been moving toward this moment his entire life without realizing it. Juliana stirred, blinking sleepily. "Morning." "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years." "Your bed is ridiculously comfortable." "It is yours anytime you want it," she smiled. "Careful, I might take you up on that. Please do." They spent the morning making breakfast together, moving around the kitchen with an ease that suggested years of practice rather than weeks. Garrett made omelets while Juliana handled the coffee and toast, and they ate on his back patio while birds sang in the trees. "I have a confession," Juliana said, setting down her coffee mug. I looked you up online, and there are a lot of articles about you. The brilliant scientist turned CEO, the billionaire who is changing healthcare, the most eligible bachelor in the city, Garrett grimaced. I hate those articles. They reduce everything to sound bites and superlatives. The eligible bachelor part must be annoying when you are trying to actually date someone. I am not trying to date someone. I am dating you. There is a difference. You know what I mean. Do not you worry about people speculating about us. Once word gets out that you are seeing someone, it is going to be news. Let them speculate. I do not care what gossip columnists think about my private life. But I am not exactly the kind of woman people would expect you to be with. No pedigree, no society connections, no designer wardrobe. Garrett reached across the table and took her hand. You are exactly the kind of woman I want to be with. Smart, passionate, genuine, kind. If other people do not understand that, that is their problem, not ours. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I care about you. You care about me. Everything else is noise. Juliana squeezed his hand. I hope you are right. The first test of that theory came 2 weeks later when a society columnist spotted them having dinner at a small Thai restaurant. The resulting article was everything Garrett had expected and hated. Speculation about his mystery date, observations about her budget clothing choices, questions about whether this was a serious relationship or just a casual fling. Juliana called him the morning the article came out, her voice tight with stress. Have you seen it? I have. I am sorry. I should have anticipated this. They are calling me a downgrade from your ex-fiancé, saying you are either going through a phase or doing charity work by dating me. Anger surged through Garrett's chest, hot and protective. That is completely ridiculous. Do not pay attention to anything those vultures write. Easy for you to say. You are used to this. I am not. I had 3 clients call this morning asking if I was really dating Garrett Jackson, and how serious is it, and does this mean I am too expensive now? What did you tell them? That my personal life has nothing to do with my business, and my rates have not changed. But Garrett, this is exactly what I was worried about. Your world bleeding into mine and changing everything. It does not have to change anything. We ignore the gossip and keep being ourselves. Can we really do that? Once something is in the public eye, it takes on a life of its own. Garrett made a decision. Let me release a statement through my company's PR team. Set the record straight. What would you say? The truth. That I am in a relationship with an accomplished businesswoman who shares my values and my commitment to making a difference. That any speculation about your background or clothing choices is offensive and irrelevant. That will just draw more attention. Maybe, but it will also establish boundaries, make it clear that I will not tolerate disrespect toward you. Juliana was quiet for a long moment. Okay. But I want to approve whatever statement gets released. This affects my business and my reputation too. Of course. I will have the PR team draft something and send it to you by this afternoon. The statement, when it was released, was professional and firm. Garrett confirmed that he was in a relationship with Juliana Santos, founder of Santos Events. He praised her work and her character, and made it clear that he considered any focus on superficial matters like clothing to be a distraction from what truly mattered, her accomplishments and her values. He also expressed his expectation that his private life would be respected moving forward. The response was mixed. Some outlets praised him for defending his girlfriend and calling out superficial journalism. Others doubled down, digging into Juliana's background and speculating about whether she was truly a good match for someone of his stature. But slowly, the story faded from the headlines, replaced by newer scandals and fresher gossip. Through it all, Juliana handled herself with grace and dignity. She did not respond to the articles, did not change anything about how she presented herself or ran her business. She wore her navy dress to the next charity gala, and if anything, she seemed more confident than ever. Garrett found himself in awe of her strength. Many people would have wilted under the scrutiny or tried to change themselves to fit expectations. Juliana stood firm in who she was and what she believed. "I am proud of you," he told her as they danced at that gala, no longer caring who saw them or what they thought. For what? For not letting them change you, for staying true to yourself even when it would have been easier to bend. "I learned a long time ago that trying to be someone I am not only makes everyone unhappy. I would rather be authentic and face criticism than be inauthentic and face praise." "Have I mentioned lately that I love you?" Juliana's eyes widened. They had been dancing around the L word for weeks, both feeling it but neither quite ready to say it out loud again. "You love me?" she asked softly. "I do, completely and without reservation. I love your integrity and your passion and your kindness. I love the way you see the world and the way you make me see it differently. I love that you wear the same thrift store dress to every event and do not apologize for it. I love you." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes. Good scared or bad scared, good scared, like jumping off a high dive scared, terrifying but exhilarating." Garrett kissed her there on the dance floor in front of hundreds of people and did not care who saw or what they thought. This was real. This was love. This was everything. Summer faded into fall and their relationship deepened and settled into something comfortable and enduring. Juliana started keeping clothes at Garrett's house, and he kept a bag at her apartment. They fell into routines: Sunday morning hikes, Tuesday night dinners at Mrs. Alberti's restaurant, Thursday evening phone calls when they were too busy to see each other in person. Garrett met Juliana's sister Alina, who was warm and funny and fiercely protective. Alina grilled him over dinner about his intentions and his ability to handle Juliana's stubborn independence. He must have passed the test, because by the end of the night, she was hugging him and telling him he was welcome anytime. Juliana met Melissa officially, not just in passing at events, and the two women bonded immediately over their shared exasperation with Garrett's workaholic tendencies. "He will work himself to death if we let him," Melissa confided over wine while Garrett was on a conference call in his study. "I have noticed. I literally had to threaten to stop seeing him if he did not start taking at least one day off per week. Did that work? Mostly. He is better than he was, at least." Garrett, listening from the doorway where they could not see him, smiled. They were plotting against him, but it came from a place of love. He was blessed beyond measure to have these women in his life. In October, the results came back from the multiple sclerosis drug trial. Garrett sat in the lab with his research team, hands shaking as he reviewed the data. The drug had worked, not just worked, but exceeded every projection. Patients who had been experiencing progressive symptoms had stabilized. Some had even shown improvement in certain markers. It was everything he had hoped for and more. He called Juliana immediately, needing to share the news with her before anyone else. "It worked," he said when she answered. "The MS drug. It worked. Garrett, that is incredible. I am so proud of you. This is going to change lives. Millions of lives. We still have to go through FDA approval, but the data is so strong, I cannot imagine them not fast-tracking it. When can you celebrate, properly celebrate? Tonight? Tomorrow? I do not care when. I just want to celebrate with you." They went to Mrs. Alberti's restaurant, where the owner immediately knew something momentous had happened based on the look on Garrett's face. She brought out her best wine and insisted on cooking them a special meal off menu. "To changing the world," Juliana said, raising her glass. "To changing the world together, Garrett corrected. Your fundraising events helped fund the research that made this possible. This is our success, not just mine. I coordinated parties. You cured a disease. You raised awareness and money for causes that matter. Do not diminish what you do. Juliana smiled, that soft, genuine smile he loved so much. Okay, to us then, to making a difference however we can. They clinked glasses, and Garrett felt a surge of contentment so profound it almost hurt. This was his life now. Meaningful work, genuine love, a partner who understood and supported him. He had never imagined being this happy. I have been thinking, Juliana said as they shared tiramisu, about what you said months ago about building a longer table instead of a higher fence. Your grandmother's wisdom. Yes, and I have been thinking that maybe it is time for me to act on that, to start the foundation I told you about, the one that helps small nonprofits with fundraising. I think that is a wonderful idea. It would mean less income from Santos events, at least initially. I would have to dedicate time to the foundation, and that time would not be billable. But it would be meaningful. Exactly. She set down her fork. I am tired of just thinking about making a bigger difference. I want to actually do it. Then you should. What can I do to help? I do not want your money. I need to do this on my own, prove that it can be sustainable. Garrett recognized the stubborn set of her jaw and knew not to push. Okay. But if you need advice or connections or someone to review business plans, I am here. That I will take you up on. Your business expertise would be invaluable. They spent the next several hours at the restaurant, planning and dreaming and building castles in the air. Mrs. Alberti eventually kicked them out gently, saying she needed to close up but that they were welcome back anytime. In the car on the way home, Juliana said, "Thank you." For what? For supporting my dream even though it is not as grand as curing diseases. Your dream is just as important as mine, maybe more so. I am helping people who are already sick. You are empowering organizations to help people before they reach crisis points. That is prevention, and prevention is always better than cure. I had not thought of it that way. Then think of it that way. What you are doing matters, Juliana. It matters to me, and it will matter to countless people your foundation helps. She leaned over and kissed his cheek. I love you. I love you too. The holidays arrived with their usual chaos. Garrett's company was in the final stages of preparing the FDA application for the MS drug, which meant long hours and intense scrutiny of every piece of data. Juliana was managing her busiest season, with galas and fundraisers nearly every night. They carved out time for each other when they could, but Garrett could feel the strain. They were both exhausted, both stretched thin, both struggling to maintain balance between their demanding careers and their relationship. The breaking point came 2 days before Christmas. Garrett had promised to attend Juliana's family dinner, meeting her extended family for the first time. But a crisis erupted at the lab, contamination in one of the drug batches that needed immediate attention. He called Juliana to explain, hating the disappointment in her voice. I understand, she said, but he could hear the hurt beneath the words. Work has to come first sometimes. It is not about priorities. This is a genuine emergency. If we do not address it immediately, we could lose months of work. I know. I do understand, but Garrett, you promised. My family has been looking forward to meeting you. I am sorry. I truly am. I will make it up to you. It is not about making it up. It is about being present when you say you will be present. They hung up with tension crackling between them, and Garrett threw himself into solving the contamination problem with grim determination. By the time it was resolved, it was nearly midnight. Juliana had sent a single text hours earlier. Dinner was nice. My family understands. But I need some time to think. Garrett stared at those words, ice forming in his stomach. Was this it? Was she done with his impossible schedule and broken promises? He showed up at her apartment the next morning with flowers and apologies. She opened the door in pajamas, her eyes red-rimmed. "I am sorry," he said immediately. "I should have found a way to be there, or at least to call you sooner to explain properly." "Come in," she said quietly. They sat on her couch, and Juliana tucked her feet under her. "I am not mad about the emergency. I understand that sometimes things happen. But Garrett, this is not the first time work has taken priority, and I am scared it is only going to get worse." "What do you mean?" "Your drug is about to go through FDA approval. When that happens, you are going to be even busier. Press tours, investor meetings, production scaling. And I am about to launch my foundation, which is going to take all my spare time. When exactly are we supposed to see each other?" Garrett felt panic rising in his chest. "We will make it work. We will find time." "Will we? Or will we just keep promising and then breaking those promises when work gets in the way?" "I do not know," he admitted, "but I know I do not want to lose you." "I do not want to lose you either, but I also do not want to be in a relationship where we are both too busy to actually be together." "So what do we do?" Juliana was quiet for a long moment. "I think we need to set boundaries. Specific times that are ours, that we protect no matter what. And if an emergency genuinely comes up, we communicate better. I should not find out through a rushed phone call that you are not coming. We should talk through it, decide together if it is truly an emergency or if it can wait. You are right. I am sorry. I have been so used to just handling crises as they come up, I did not think about how that affects you. We are a team now, or at least I thought we were. We are." "Absolutely we are." Garrett took her hands. "Let me do better. Let me show you that you are my priority, not just something I fit in around work. I need you to mean that. I do. I swear I do." They spent Christmas together, just the two of them, cooking dinner in his kitchen and exchanging simple gifts. Juliana gave him a framed photograph she had taken on one of their hikes, a vista of mountains and sky that took his breath away. He gave her a donation to her nascent foundation, along with a promise to connect her with potential board members and supporters. "I thought you were not going to give me money," she teased. "I am not. I am giving your foundation money. There is a difference. If you say so." They made love that night with a tenderness that felt like a new beginning. Garrett held her afterward, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, and made a silent vow to do better, to be better, to make her feel valued and prioritized every single day. The new year brought changes. Garrett hired an assistant CEO, someone who could handle the day-to-day operations while he focused on the big picture. It was hard letting go of control, but he recognized that he could not do everything himself. Not if he wanted to maintain his relationship and his sanity. Juliana officially launched her foundation in February with a small event that Garrett attended, beaming with pride as she spoke about her vision and her goals. She had recruited a board of directors, secured initial funding, and already had 3 small nonprofits lined up to receive services. "You are amazing," he told her afterward, pulling her into his arms. "Watching you build this has been inspiring. I could not have done it without you. Your advice, your connections, your support, it has all been invaluable. You would have found a way regardless. That is who you are." Spring brought FDA approval for the MS drug, and suddenly, Garrett was in demand everywhere. News programs wanted interviews. Medical conferences wanted him to speak. Investment firms wanted to discuss the financial implications of the breakthrough. He did the necessary publicity but kept his commitments to Juliana. Tuesday nights at Mrs. Alberti's, Sunday morning hikes, Thursday evening calls when travel kept them apart. He protected their time fiercely, and Juliana noticed. "Thank you," she said one Sunday as they descended from a particularly beautiful trail, "for keeping your word, for making us a priority. You are my priority, always. I love you too, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." That evening, Garrett made a decision. He had been carrying the ring in his pocket for 2 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. But watching Juliana laugh at something on her phone, her hair messy from the hike, her face free of makeup, he realized there was no such thing as a perfect moment. There was only now and the woman he loved and the overwhelming certainty that he wanted to spend his life with her, Juliana. She looked up, still smiling. "What? Marry me?" The smile froze. "What?" He pulled out the ring box, opening it to reveal a simple sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. "Marry me. Build a life with me. Let us figure out how to balance work and love and everything else together as partners." "Garrett, are you serious?" "Completely. I have never been more serious about anything in my life." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "We have only been dating for 10 months. I know. And I know who you are, what you value, how you move through the world. I know I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. So marry me, please." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, as he had known it would. They kissed there in his living room with sunset lights streaming through the windows, and Garrett felt complete in a way he never had before. The wedding was small and intimate, held in the garden behind Mrs. Alberti's restaurant on a perfect June afternoon. Melissa served as Garrett's best woman, and Alina stood up for Juliana. Mrs. Alberti catered, naturally, and the food was spectacular. Juliana wore a new dress for the occasion, though she joked about wearing her navy thrift store special. The wedding dress was simple and elegant, bought from a local designer for a reasonable price, and she looked absolutely radiant. "I cannot believe I get to marry you," Garrett said as they danced their first dance as husband and wife. "I cannot believe I said yes to a man who proposed in his living room while I was sweaty from hiking. Would you have preferred something more elaborate?" "No, it was perfect. It was us." They honeymooned in New Zealand, hiking through mountains and rainforests, disconnecting from work and just being together. It was 2 weeks of pure joy, and Garrett returned feeling refreshed and more in love than ever. Life settled into a new rhythm. Juliana moved into Garrett's house, bringing her plants and her photographs and her warmth. They converted one of the spare bedrooms into a home office for her, and she split her time between working from home and the Santos events office. Her foundation grew steadily, helping more nonprofits each quarter. Garrett's company continued to thrive, with the MS drug becoming one of their best-selling medications and funding research into other neurological conditions. They had arguments, of course, about whose schedule took priority when conflicts arose, about whether to hire household help or keep doing their own cleaning, about paint colors and vacation destinations, and 100 other small things that couples navigate. But they worked through each issue with respect and communication, never letting resentment build. 2 years into their marriage, Juliana announced she was pregnant. Garrett cried when she told him, overwhelmed with joy and terror and wonder. They prepared the nursery together, reading parenting books and attending classes and arguing good-naturedly about names. Their daughter arrived on a snowy December morning, tiny and perfect and screaming with impressive volume. They named her Grace Alina, honoring Garrett's mother and Juliana's sister. Holding his daughter for the first time, with Juliana exhausted but glowing in the hospital bed, Garrett thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a thrift store dress, and a man who noticed that someone was living their values instead of just talking about them. "What are you thinking about?" Juliana asked softly. "About how lucky I am. about how a navy dress changed my life. She laughed quietly, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. You fell in love with me because of a dress. I fell in love with you because of what the dress represented. Your integrity, your priorities, your refusal to compromise who you are for anyone's expectations. Well, I am glad I did not splurge on designer clothes then. Me too. He leaned over to kiss her forehead, though for the record I would have fallen in love with you regardless of what you wore. Good answer. Grace stirred in his arms, making the little snuffling sounds that already seemed impossibly dear. Garrett looked at his wife, his daughter, the life they had built together, and felt gratitude so profound it was almost painful. This was everything. This was more than he had ever imagined wanting. This was the reward for being open to love when it appeared in unexpected forms. Years passed in a blur of birthday parties and school events and family dinners. Grace grew into a curious, kind child who loved helping her mother with foundation events and asking her father endless questions about science. When she was 5, Juliana got pregnant again, and their son Thomas joined the family, completing their little unit. Santos' events and Juliana's foundation both continued to thrive. Garrett's company launched 2 more groundbreaking medications, cementing its reputation as a leader in pharmaceutical innovation. But more than professional success, they built a life rich with meaning and connection. On their 10th anniversary, Garrett took Juliana back to Mrs. Alberti's restaurant. The owner was older now, but still sharp and warm, still insisting on cooking them special dishes not on the menu. "Remember when you first brought me here?" Juliana asked, holding her wine glass and smiling at the memory. "I remember being terrified you would think I was showing off or trying too hard. I remember thinking how genuine you were, how different from what I expected a billionaire CEO to be. And now, after 10 years of marriage and 2 kids and all the chaos of real life, now I know I was right. You are genuine, you are kind, you are exactly who you seemed to be that first night, just more so." She reached across the table to take his hand. "I am so glad I wore that dress." "Which one?" "You have more than one dress now." She swatted his arm playfully. "You know which one. The navy thrift store dress that somehow caught your attention." "It was not the dress that caught my attention. It was you. The dress just helped me see what was already there." Still charming after all these years. "I have a good reason to be charming. I am married to the most amazing woman I have ever met." They toasted to 10 more years, then 20, then however many they were blessed to have. And as Garrett looked at his wife across the table, he sent a silent thank you to whatever twist of fate had led him to notice a woman in a navy dress at a charity gala all those years ago. She had changed his life simply by being herself, by living her values without apology or compromise. And in loving her, he had become a better version of himself, more present, more grounded, more aware of what truly mattered. That night, driving home with Juliana's hand in his, Garrett felt the deep contentment of a life well lived. Professional success, yes, but more importantly, personal fulfillment. A partnership built on mutual respect and genuine love. Children who were growing up secure and loved. A legacy that went beyond medications and money to include the lives touched and improved by their combined efforts. The navy dress hung in their closet now, retired from active duty but kept as a reminder. Sometimes Garrett would see it and smile, remembering the woman who wore it proudly to event after event, unconcerned with fashion trends or other people's expectations. That woman was his wife now, the mother of his children, his partner in all things. And he fell in love with her more deeply with each passing day. Because she had taught him that true wealth was not measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios, but in the richness of relationships and the impact of purposeful action. She had shown him that integrity was not a luxury but a necessity, that being genuine was more valuable than being impressive. And she had loved him not for his money or his status, but for who he was beneath all the trappings of success. She had seen the man who still remembered his small-town roots, who honored his parents' legacy by doing work that mattered, who wanted to make a real difference in the world. Together, they had built something beautiful, a love story that began with honesty and grew through mutual respect, a partnership that balanced professional ambition with personal connection, a family that embodied the values they both held dear. And it all started because a woman chose to wear the same thrift store dress to every event, and a CEO noticed and fell for her honesty. That honesty had become the foundation of everything they built together. Through challenges and triumphs, through the everyday moments and the extraordinary ones, they remained true to themselves and to each other. On quiet evenings when the kids were asleep and the house was peaceful, they would sit together and marvel at the life they had created. Neither had imagined, all those years ago at that first gala, that a simple observation about a dress would lead to this depth of love and partnership. But looking back, it seemed inevitable. Two people who valued substance over surface, who believed in using their resources to help others, who were willing to be vulnerable and genuine even in environments that rewarded performance and pretense. They had found each other across a crowded ballroom, connected by shared values and mutual recognition. And they had built something lasting, something real, something that grew more precious with each passing year. The navy dress might have caught his eye, but it was Juliana's heart that captured his soul. And for that, Garrett would be grateful for the rest of his life. Their story was proof that authenticity attracts authenticity, that living your values openly creates connections with others who share those values. It was a testament to the power of being true to yourself, even when that means standing out or facing criticism. Most of all, it was a love story. The kind that starts with genuine interest and grows through shared experience. The kind that survives challenges because it is built on a foundation of respect and honest communication. The kind that deepens over time rather than fading. And whenever anyone asked them how they met, Juliana would smile and say, "I wore the same dress to every event, and he was the only one who noticed for the right reasons." Garrett would add, "She showed me that real value has nothing to do with price tags and everything to do with character." Together, they lived the truth of those statements every day. In how they raised their children, in how they ran their businesses, in how they treated everyone from CEOs to service workers with equal respect and kindness. The navy dress was just a dress. But what it represented, the values and integrity and honesty it symbolized, that was everything. And recognizing those qualities in Juliana, falling in love with the woman who embodied them so fully, was the best decision Garrett ever made. They lived happily ever after, not because their life was perfect or without challenges, but because they faced everything together with honesty, love, and unwavering commitment to each other, and the values they shared. And somewhere in their closet, a simple navy dress hung as a reminder of where it all began, with authenticity, with honesty, with the courage to be exactly who you are regardless of expectations. That courage had brought them together. And their shared commitment to living authentically kept them together through all the years that followed, building a love story that was as genuine and enduring as the values that first connected them.